Hey guys, it's me again, Orchler. What if where I last left off? Let's see, checking. Where I last left off on what if Deku was fallen? Well, Deku was sending his people of Erismorn to help her with the moon projects. And also at this point, the Guardians, like Nana Shimura and the rest of them, are starting to go there as well. As Deku pretty much adamantly refuses to go onto the moon. Because he knows what his nightmares are and what things that terrify him at night. Many Guardians may fear the same thing, but that doesn't mean he will take the chance of the nightmares trying to conjure up his... keep trying to conjure up his nightmares. Because he can tell that would just make things 100 times worse. And Deku doesn't really want a lot of his people going on there. He sends the most... the one with the most mental fortitude. They could take the fighting their nightmares day in, day out sort of deal. But that group is very small. To the point that there's only 5 of them that can really be there. His fallen are fearless in some cases when it comes to battle, but when it comes to their dreams, there's a few of them that are haunted by some of the stuff they have to fight. He recalls as when one of them came back, he was muttering about how there was 5 hive knights. And that was when that one was sent against the horde that was attacking the reef. That fallen remembers as some of his best friends were literally torn apart by the hive. He remembers the outlines that they were just hive knights. As it's the nightmares of Garnash, or something like that. That's all they are. So Deku decides to just send ones that he believed had the strength to throw away with their nightmares. Deku knew he isn't, though. That's one of the things he lacks in, is that he understands that fear is very powerful. And he understands that fear is what rules many creatures. Fear of loss, fear of death. So he just takes a back seat for this one, as he's talking with Kaminari and the rest of them about overseeing the preparation for the dreadnoughts, his right and left hands. As he appoints Kirishima and Toga as some guy pointed out to me, just do something similar, the shipmasters. But I called them the dreadnoughts. The dreadnoughts captain. Well, it's a weird idea. Shipmaster doesn't sound quite right. It's technically catches our ships. So I think a more appropriate name would probably be in mind. I like the idea of shipmaster. If I can't think of anything else, I'll use that. But I've been trying to think of good ideas. But it's kind of ringing hollow, so maybe, I'll use shipmaster for now. But on the other hand, you got Deku and them preparing this such thing. As Ikura's hidden are actually trying to get into Deku's thing, as there's some hunters that Ikora still has under her influence, you could call it. As they are they actually are able to make it in there, but not even, some of the hunters don't even know what's going on with Deku's forces, as it was all happy and holly jolly in the beginning, but then they just took a back seat, as they report that Deku's taken prisoners of the Cabal and is forcing them into manual labor. As they would put it, they're enslaving them. But that's the farthest thing from the truth. Deku's just putting them to work until there's no work left. Eventually he'll send them off, as they're just doing the rebuilding process. But some of the Cabal are actually enjoying it there, since they, as they would put it, they are not constantly trying to be killed. As some of the Fallen hear how the Cabal are speaking, as they bring words, and it's a very loose translation, but still it says, This is better than when we were serving under Valkaur, or even Gaul. We aren't being constantly sent to the front lines to die. Man, maybe this Panther guy ain't so bad. But then others are saying that they wish to return to Torah battle, since Keitel and them, in the future, Keitel and them end up having to fight Shiva Orath and Savathun, I believe. Or is it just Shiva Orath? It's one. I'm pretty sure it's just one of them, but pretty sure it's just Shiva Orath. But essentially, what happens is in the new thing, pretty much Torah battle is destroyed. There's no way around it. So some of them are starting to talk about how the Hive in the system remind them of some of the foes that they have fought before. They are different, but very similar. So they go on to talk about the Fallen, how resilient they are to just be able to stand against all these creatures for this long. As the Fallen have been in the system for like maybe a few hundred to maybe at least 1,000 years. The Cabal do feel that the Fallen have earned their place, or at least these Fallen have earned their place to stand among the big players in the system. As I said before, Deku's forces have been heavily injured. So, some of the Cabal understand that Deku may actually start recruiting again, and they question would they even accept a Cabal into his military forces. As he talks about how they allowed the dead men to join, even though they've been killing each other for years, for hundreds of years. Maybe he wouldn't be so opposed to having a few Cabal join them. Like, it wouldn't be that simple. It'd have to be a very high-ranking Cabal, I think. Because think about it. The grunts don't stop killing each other. It's usually high-ranking members first. As he says, he got a point. That doesn't dissuade my argument. We could probably get them to let us join if we work hard enough. Maybe they'll even let us just stick around as manual labor. We get more food than when we were doing with rations and such. As some of them nod their head as it's like, it's a good idea. As the Fallen report back to Deku, as he hears this, he thinks and entertains, you could call it, the idea. Saying that he is right to some extent. He doesn't want to kill the Cabal, necessarily. He wants a bit of vengeance, maybe, for what they just did to his city. But he isn't looking to annihilate their entire race. The Cabal here just seem to cause havoc and destroy things, out of anger, since he literally killed Gaul, or was one of the ones that perpetrated in his death. And the Fallen, he's been harassing the Cabal for over a decade, so he understands it. He thinks about the idea, and he sort of starts to like it. Maybe getting some Cabal would be helpful, but you need high-ranking members of the Cabal, like the Legionary said. If I had high-ranking members in my own organization, other Cabal may be more likely to join, seeing that esteemed, as he would put the words loosely, esteemed leaders are joining my cause and are following or are choosing to serve me instead of their emperor. Well, actually, their emperor is gone. Gaul is dead. Who is next? As he thinks about it, as some of the Cabal even wondered this about themselves, since they've been stuck here. As some of them talked about Keitel and how she was technically the Princess Imperior, something other. Imperior? Something. She's pretty much the princess. As when they're thinking about it, she could never ascend so quickly. They must be sorting out what's ever happening with them first. Others may try to claim where Gaul left. It is not an easy choice, my friends. But for now we may have to serve the Panther to survive. Later we could rejoin the Empire. Hell, maybe we could even convince the Fallen to do the same. Deku entertains the idea of joining the Cabal. He tosses it around in his head for a bit. They would be given probably an extreme level of protection if their species numbers is low enough, because he doesn't know the numbers the Cabal have. He's seen what their military like, and they seem to have enough of a big enough military to throw into a meat grinder. Because he thinks about like this, that a Cabal soldier, the average Cabal legionary, is probably vastly superior to the average fallen Vandal. Fallen Vandal, and maybe a little bit below a captain when it comes to strength, durability. But he starts thinking about all the aspects. The Fallen are naturally a tough people. They have a very tough skin. I don't know how fast they grow or how quickly they age. Like I said, we don't know any of that stuff, like any of those details. But Deku goes on to think in his head that we may, if they give us enough time to repopulate, essentially, we could possibly be a worthy force to stand along their scions and such. But he doesn't want that for his people. He wants them to be able to rule themselves, as they have always done. He wouldn't mind joining the Alliance like he had done before, because the Cabal wouldn't rule them, they would work with them as equals. And that's just what he wants. He wants his people safe and happy, and to be able to, as the Fallen, choose what they do. Granted, he doesn't want them to wage war endlessly against the last cities, because he just finds that an idiotic idea, quite counterproductive when they could build off of each other. With the Fallen being as tough as they are, they could easily, and they have, as you guys have probably seen, Smallin, the baby Fallen that we've seen with the Splicer. How they're gonna have the season of the Splicer come out. Correct? So, it will be interesting, if we see more Smallin. Because I've just seen that's what everyone calls him, is Smallin. And I actually love that name. But Deku, after thinking a while, just drops it. As he hears about the progress of his troops on Luna, like I said, he has nobody on the moon. As if he does send a big group of them, that's mainly to help Eris in a section. As she actually requests his assistance to come on, and that there's something dangerous that lurks beneath Luna, that that the Guardian at the moment is tackling the other nightmares of, Taniks, Skolos, all those ones. He's taking on them. But she senses that there's a greater nightmare that lurks beneath, or lurks across the surface of Luna. And the Guardian's too busy, so she would need help from a very powerful, as she put it, fallen warlock. Not fallen warlock, but a fallen warrior, as he's kept it a secret, like I've said before. I've probably said many times before. But Osiris, his inner circle. That's about it, I believe. As she talks about how, instead of a powerful fallen warlock, she needs the most powerful fallen that she's ever known. As Deku thinks about it, he says, He comes alone on his personal ship, seeing that the nightmares literally do have they're mentally draining on anyone who gets close to him. He's even his squad of the people he sends up to deal with the nightmares, who are, as he would put it, resistant to their effects. he like gets reports on how they feel them wearing on them. And when he gets over there to, well, Eris Morn, he sees how the moon is literally like starting to drive her a bit mad. As he says, Eris Morn, how is it that I can help you? She's like, I know, as she like bows her head, and I'm sorry for calling you away from your city, Kel, Deku. But this is a most urgent matter. I believe a nightmare of Oryx has appeared. As Deku thinks, Oryx? A nightmare of him? That would serve well, as he thinks back to how he was kinda haunted a little bit by Oryx, knowing that Oryx wreaked havoc across the system. He decimated all forces that were even somewhat involved to him. The Hive, the Vex, well, the Hive were just bolstered by him. Deku and his forces had a hell of a time trying to beat them back. It was difficult, as Bell recalls him and saying, yes, I'm aware. I believe he has returned, in some extent. Nothing too dangerous, just a nightmare. He's like, where is it? She's like, here, take... As she gives him some things that help him kill a nightmare, he's like, let us get this over with, Eris. I hate this place. Oh, I can feel it all over. It tears at us. I don't like it. It's like, what has your research found? I know the Vanguard has poked their nose here. As she says, they don't like it. The black ship, the Black Pyramid. It's here. The pyramid. See things back to it. The pyramids. As I believe the season of arrival is where the actual fleet comes in. I believe so. Yeah. The Black Fleet comes in around the season of arrival, which happens a little bit after or right after. Like, it's like the first season of Scarlet Keep. Let me go check real quick. I'm sorry. Yep, alright. So, Season of the Worthy has pretty much happened, or is gonna happen after this. As he asks what those are, she explains that they are the enemy, the darkness. As he hears the word darkness as, what do you mean? See, Deku, like the light, our traveler. There is a force out there completely made of, that is pretty much the entirety of the darkness. They will come for us. I already know this. Their ship is already here. The Hive worship the darkness as an entity. As he would put it, the grand final shape. The sword logic is entirely based around what the darkness intends for the universe. And the traveler, the polar opposite. Instead of destroying it, believes in building. Believes in peace and everything. But even though it doesn't probably mean to, it brings war wherever it goes. Because the darkness always chases the light. Deku thinks, maybe it's not such a bad idea I commissioned those dreadnoughts after all. Osiris has been helping us build some of them and seeing if he could integrate some of the Vex engines in there. And I remember Gaul had some sort of power of some way to trap light. I will see about if I could get the hunters to pilot weapons on the dreadnoughts. I wish to see, as he actually asked Eris Morn a question as they're about to arrive at their destination. Can Guardians charge all their weapons with light? Even stationary guns? As she's like, there is no reason to think not. Why do you ask? As Deku thinks she is trustworthy. She understands preparation and doing what is necessary to prepare yourself for the darkness. As he actually explains the plan to him, my forces are building two giants, titanic ships. Ones that could possibly even rival, well, a city in the size of it. We have the Cabal, as you know, attacked my city. Over the last several months, we've been gathering all the materials, cannibalizing any ship we can come across that we don't already use to secure our borders, drop troops, help everywhere across the system. You hear? She's like, I understand. Guardians have flocked, or many hunters have come to live, you could say, or call my city home for now. They are free to go as they please, something I think they appreciate aside from your vanguard. We do not have a hunter's vanguard. We put up orders and tell them where to go. She's like, that is a dangerous way to treat the hunters. Trust me, I know. They desire freedom. I will not keep them from it. It is how they are. Their nature. For me to deprive them of that is even greater loss. That is why they fear the vanguard right now. Do not want to be forced into positions they do not want. I do not force anyone to do anything aside, well, to die or not. But that is a very simple answer to those most time. As Deku continues walking in front of Eris Morn, they arrive at it. As he says, this is the place. She's like, yes. The Nightmare of Oryx shall rest inside. It will be a tough battle for you, Deku, he says. My entire life has been a tough battle. This will just be another minor victory in a larger war. As she thinks about what he just said, is that he's constantly had to fight his entire life. As he was absorbed into a house that really, when he was the only one that wore his house's colors, he got beat up on quite a bit. Those he would call his allies jumped him and kicked him around. But he still called himself he still considered him subservient to the lion. Then he went on to help him complete missions, save hundreds of fallen. And then would provide ether and the abilities to make more ether so that thousands wouldn't die, especially like hatchling fallens, which is what we know them as, is that they're hatchlings. They're they are called spider pirates. That is what they are. Then he was forced to fight guardians in the city. Then he moved on to other fallen, and he just bounced around. He has fought every single faction in this area, and quite a few of the minor factions, as she would put it. As Bell walks in, he immediately sees in the center of the moon, in like a crater, where Oryx is. As he goes over and touches it, it does the whole thing where it blows up, as an Oryx, or the Nightmare of Oryx, is unleashed. As Bell prepares himself, he says, one last battle for the dead king. As he prepares himself, as he charges. I can't cut it off now. It's too good. As he throws a grenade, you could call it, right at his face, as it blows up in Oryx's, or the Nightmare's, face. As it swings down trying to cut through it, it just blows up. Deku moving in closer, he stabs at it, and he actually finds that he actually can't hurt it. As he rips into it more and more, the nightmare eventually brings in like that, when he would summon the player into the center, as then he had all the fog around him, as he would fly around, as then he sent droves of thralls and such at you. He then, as Deku's firing and stomping on these thrall, Oryx comes in, trying to slam his sword back on Deku's back. Deku does a quick little dodge out of the way, as then he punches its face as he grabs onto like that part of his side. He grabs onto it and rips it off. As this nightmare is not having a nice time. Deku takes it and then sort of puts it in the palm of his hand as he takes it and then smashes it right back into the nightmare's three eyes. Then tries to wrestle the sword from it as he's able to get it out of one of its grips after he takes his two knives and borderline just stabs its elbow and such. As he's able to wrestle it from one of its hands as he kicks it in the side. This nightmare is extremely durable, as it took him a bit of his energy to force those knives down into its arms. As then he pulls back as he's like... As he bends down, grabs a rock and throws it, it just hits the nightmare in the face as it just doesn't do anything. He says, "This wrestling is annoying, but it must be done. Time to kill." As he, with one swift movement, takes out his two sabers, as he sort of flashes forward with, Oryx's guard being broken, immediately just slices diagonally across Oryx's chest. As the nightmare is not as powerful as the real deal, so the nightmare dies and goes poof as it does. As the bell stands there victorious, as the rest of the arena, you could call it, falls away from where this nightmare had summoned it. Bell stands there just like, I was expecting more. He walks up as Eris is just like, "You did it." He's like, "Yes, there is nothing remaining. I return to the city." She's like, "Indeed, Deku. Good luck." Deku says, "Indeed." As Deku walks up, he starts going upstairs, you could call it. No, not upstairs. He goes back to his ship as he takes off and returns to Earth. As he does that, he actually gets a request by Zavala and Zavala and Ikora to come to the city. As Deku goes to answer it, then he gets another message as it's the fallen house of the Alliance requesting his presence. As he's like, As the fallen say that it's an urgent matter that must be discussed immediately. As Deku brushes his chin, he's like, I will cede to this urgency. As Deku sends a message, you could call it, to Zavala saying that he is predisposed at the moment, and that if there's business to discuss, one of his seconds, Kirishima or Toga, will have to suffice. As Zavala says, they can wait. Whatever you need to do, get it done, and please report back to us. As Deku thinks of the word report back. Report back? I do not report to anyone. As Deku turns off the transmission, as Zavala thinks maybe he chose because he typically has people say, report back to me, is like his subordinates. As Deku approaches the Alliance, Japan pretty much, he lands down as there's a honor guard, you could call it, of Panthers that pretty much at the embassy, you could call it, of the Panthers in the Alliance stronghold. He approaches as they lead him right to where the three Kells had actually meet up, as the stag, the lion, and the jaguar. Yeah, the jaguar. They all stand there as they all have grown a little bit, and especially the stag. He's sort of jumped up in height. As they're all talking amongst each other, Deku reaches them as it says, Kel Deku. As Deku says, there is no need for the honorary thing of Kel. They are all Kells here, so should speak to each other as equals. What is it that you need, Lion? Or they actually just refer to each other as what their house name is. So they refer to one as Stag, Lion, Jaguar, Panther. As 3 big cats and a stag. Yeah, that not really makes sense. As they ask Deku, as they know about Deku's, project to build the massive ships, they ask him about how much is he planning on this taking. As he says, I don't know, as much as we can spare. Even getting one of these ships operational would be vital to securing the as he hates to use this word, the superiority of House of Panthers, so that none would challenge his house again. As they somewhat agree, saying that they agree that it was dangerous with how everything went. As they ask, could he what are their options when it comes to building the ship? As they themselves would like to construct a dreadnought, or maybe even 3, one for each of the houses that reside in Japan. Bell says it's a colossal undertaking that's taken his people months to complete half of the ships. It's insane the amount of effort, resources, everything that they are diverting to this. They have literally stopped fighting most of the other enemies that they have been. They've pulled troops from the shore to put back on scavenging duty and bringing in more and more scrap so that way they can build the ships quicker. As his people are being put to manual labor, not just the Cabal. As he says this, the rest of them say, as we thought. We should attempt to ease your suffering. We hear of many shipyards that have been put to rest in the Sol system. Around Jupiter, Io, many of these ships, many of these abandoned places could be put to work. Better yet, draw them back to here, to Earth. We use them as trading hubs, but also used to build brand new ships, is what the House of Stag says. As the Lion says, he could provide transport and all that. As the Jaguar says, she could provide stealth units and such. So that's what they specialize in, stealth operations. And saying that they could easily send in troops to secure areas, so that way they can even secure tiny things like that. That any ship that they can really get their hands on, they could either tear it apart, use it for spare things, or if it's a really good ship, they could just add it to their already pretty good armada. As Bell thinks about this and accepts their proposal, saying that it is a good idea. But what about weapons? You have our ability to make frames and such. Not to the same capacity that we do, but surely you can output more of them. We can, and we've been trying to, but there's a few problems here and there. As Bell and Oldham are discussing this, it goes on for hours upon hours of them hammering out the details. As it comes to morning and Bell thinks that he must retreat and return to them, Zavala has sent him another message, asking for guidance, whatever that may mean. As he leaves, as the others just wait for saying they are grateful to him, and that they will await his return, Kel Deku. As Deku just nods his head as they walk away. Anyway, that's where I'm going to be ending this off at. I hope you guys enjoy this. Hope you guys continue to enjoy this. Hope you guys have a nice day, nice night, nice life.